Hello and welcome to the new podcast about my book, Attempting Local. Attempting Local follows my journey as I explore Ireland, surf the waves of the North Atlantic, hike the country's rugged mountains, and travel throughout Europe, all while striving toward a master's degree. It's an extremely honest account of how tough it can be to leave everything behind and move abroad, though it simultaneously demonstrates the beauty of a life of solo travel. Episode number 6, A Weekend in Valletta, Malta. Just a brief note before we get started. Once you finish this episode, you can supplement your listening with a YouTube video. I filmed and created it during my adventure with Trevor, my old housemate, and it's called Explore Malta, A Weekend in Valletta. Search that on YouTube or type in Cullan McNamara to find it on my channel. Watching this video will add a visual aspect to the experience, and it'll only make this episode more enjoyable. Thanks for the interruption and enjoy the show. Entry number 14, October 5th, 2018, 40 days since moving to Ireland. Entry title, Malta. I made one egregious omission in the early drafts of this book, my trip to Malta with Trevor. Trevor quickly became one of my closest friends in Ireland for numerous reasons. Because he's a Nebraska native, we instantly connected with our mutual desire to flee the Midwest in search of more. We were also in similar states mentally and emotionally, especially during our first semester. Neither of us knew if Ireland was the right choice, and being that we were housemates, we had more than sufficient time to reinforce one another's plights. If I was having a good week, chances were Trevor was struggling, and vice versa. In an attempt to drag ourselves, and each other, out of these dreary mood swings, we decided to spend a couple days in Malta. First and foremost, Trevor is a strange guy, and this is unquestionably one of his greatest, or at least most entertaining traits. He's tall, lanky, goofy, awkward, and he makes some shockingly divisive jokes and comments. My personal favorite controversial remark of his shouldn't even be entered into this account, but I could tell you sometime in person if you're really curious. Alternatively, you could just ask him, "Why are you such a good dancer?" He'll answer earnestly, and you'll either laugh or clench your teeth and raise your eyebrows in disbelief. I believe my reaction included all of the above. What I'm getting at is, Trevor had this odd desire to visit as many micro countries as possible while in Europe. Now, that's not weird really, but it's just, Trevor. As a result, Malta became the first on our list of places to visit outside of Ireland. What we weren't aware of at the time was that Valletta, the capital, was voted to be a European capital of culture in 2018. To add to the hype, we were going to be around for one of the biggest festivals of the year, Notte Bianca. It was with much excitement then that we packed our bags and departed Galway on our first major expedition. We were going to an even smaller island, but small and island were about the limits of the similarities between Ireland and Malta. When we finally stepped out of the cab around 1 a.m. on October 5th, we instantly knew we were somewhere Mediterranean. The palm trees gave it away. It was nearly 70 degrees Fahrenheit, even that early in the day. Galway was hardly breaching 50 at the same time. Trevor's footsteps were enhanced by the unbelievable quiet as we strolled through 𝗵𝗀𝗃, which rests opposite Valletta on the south side of the Grand Harbor. The stones beneath our feet were so worn down by time and use that they were slick and smooth. The sandstone color of the tightly packed buildings was saturated further by the yellow glow of the city lights. Upon arriving at our Airbnb, Trevor proved his worth as a travel companion. I booked the flights, he dealt with accommodation, and the apartment he chose was splendid. Though it was easy to sense the country's old age, our temporary home was extremely modern, boasting amenities everywhere we looked. And it was incredibly cheap. Trev and I soon unpacked, then passed out in preparation for the 2 days ahead. So it is day 1 in Malta, 7:19 a.m., just showered up, and Trevor's doing the same right now. So we'll be heading to breakfast soon, and then we get to explore the city. But from what it looked like last night, this place looks unreal. It looks so cool. It's almost like a mix of Greece and Italy. And obviously where Malta is, if you look on a map, is really close to Sicily and Italy. So it does have some influence, I'm guessing. But man, this place is just gorgeous. I finished as I turned to look out the window, swiveling the camera around to stop the recording. Trev and I proceeded to search out a breakfast place and quickly found the perfect one. 𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗃 in Victory Square would fuel us for the day. In my Google Maps review, I stated, "Very decently priced, even for students and budget travelers. And it's a gorgeous place in a very local part of town. Not many tourists were there during either of my visits, and you get a good taste for the Maltese language. The staff were kind and the food was great. Try the Maltese coffee if you're willing to take your taste buds on an adventure." If you couldn't tell, I'm doing a lot of research into my own life for this entry. Considering I'm writing this in September of 2019, almost a year later, I'm lucky this trip was so well documented in writing and video clips. Based on that evidence, it appears we first explored 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗃, then went to the harbor to photograph Valletta's profile. What intrigued me most about the country was its unique confluence of Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and African cultures. That blended architectural style was easy to witness from across the water, and it's fun to look back on it all now. To get to Valletta from 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗃, one can easily pay a couple euro for a 10-minute ferry across the Grand Harbor. For whatever reason, Trev and I decided to hoof it. By the time we made the long and absurdly unnecessary horseshoe-shaped walk to Valletta, I asked,
Alright Trevor, what would you say about Malta so far?
Perfect weather, good sodas, and nice people, good snack bars.
Good weather, good soft drinks, very nice snack bars.
Beautiful architecture.
Beautiful architecture. Good weather? Did we already say that? And good vibes.
"Anything else we should tell our viewers?" I asked. "Take the ferry." The remainder of the day was consumed by eating 𝗪𝗠𝗔𝘁𝗃, drinking 𝗪𝗁𝗃, and leisurely taking in the sights. 𝗪𝗠𝗃𝗃 are pastries that are often stuffed with cheese or peas. They're cheap and easy to find throughout Valletta, but they're an absolute must-have. 𝗪𝗃, spelled CISK, is the staple Maltese beer. In idea, it's similar to what Budweiser is in America. In taste, it's anything but, and I'd highly recommend it. After stuffing ourselves, we ventured into a couple museums, memorizing fun facts that we would share upon exiting. I can't remember any of them now, and no record of them exists. As night fell, we found a bar situated along the stairs of an alleyway that faced south, toward the harbor. We drank for a while and eventually noticed a small platform at the bottom of the steps with a DJ playing music behind it. There was a street party going on, doors open on either side of the alley, a plastic table set up with a neighbor selling €1 beers out of a cooler. That was a scene we wanted to be a part of. We joined in, drinking and dancing with locals and tourists alike. The street party was drawing to a close around 1 a.m., but we'd been invited by a few mainland Europeans to a rooftop party and fine arts show. These people had moved from some cold, northern country to Malta, apparently for the art scene, but we had a crucial decision to make. The ferry didn't run all night from Valletta to 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗃. If we went to the after party, we'd have to trek an hour and a half back to our Airbnb. In the end, we knew what we had to do. We said screw it and followed our new acquaintances to the random house in the unfamiliar city. Our friends led us up the stairs of the house to an impeccably decorated rooftop that overlooked the harbor. Lights were strung up along the roof's perimeter. A bartender handed out complimentary champagne to the guests. Vendors stood smartly dressed near tables that displayed their opulent creations. I could only think one thing. How did we get here? Obviously, you could trace a series of events to this exact moment, but I could not escape feeling amazed by the fact that Trevor and I were overlooking Malta's nighttime cityscape, sipping free champagne, and mingling with some of Valletta's finest artists. I see now why it takes years to write a book. I occasionally need space from this work to continue breathing life into it. That's why I'm writing about day 2 of our Malta trip in April of 2020. This is a bit meta, but because of the coronavirus pandemic, I finally had the time and inspiration to record the audiobook-style podcast of this book. But as I go along to record each episode, I fix errors and insufficiencies. Leaving out day 2 of my adventure with Trevor is a glaring exclusion that I was simply too lazy to add during earlier edits. And now we're here, back again, writing. The further in time we move, the tougher it is to remember the details, but in a strange way that's not entirely true. I recall taking the ferry to 𝗪𝗪 because Trevor wanted to go to a chandlery, a shop that sells nautical goods. He was hoping to pick up a flag of Malta, which we eventually did find. We strolled past a motorcycle dealership with a bike that's nameplate read Michigan. I thought that was exceedingly strange. I'd never heard of a bike named after my home state. At some point, Trevor and I popped into a smoothie shop. I snapped an iconic photo of him sitting at our table, an old bicycle hanging on the wall behind him that's wheels were used to spell the word food. The F and D hung on either side, both letters and tires backlit by warm, yellow LEDs. We took the ferry back to Valletta. There were 3 women sitting in front of Trev and me, and I overheard them speaking in Spanish. They kept peeking back, giggling, and 2 words stuck out to me. Muy guapo. In English, that means very handsome, so I told Trevor they were talking about him. It's difficult to remember the rest. I believe because Notte Bianca was that night. We toured Valletta and sipped interesting beers until the party began. As dusk fell, multicolored lights livened the streets and buildings of Valletta. Locals and tourists alike crowded the old city. Trevor and I soon abandoned the streets though and entered St. John's Co-Cathedral before it closed for the evening. It was a gorgeous church, gilded and smothered by frescoes. I took another profile picture-esque photo in the cathedral for Trev before we departed. Anyone who travels with me is spoiled with pictures. I often forget to offer myself the same service though. The rest of the night consisted of weaving through masses of people and bouncing from event to event. There was some incredibly fun live music on a main stage, theatrical plays on the steps of ancient-looking buildings, and random concerts scattered throughout the city. Notte Bianca did not disappoint, and it was only amplified by the fact that Valletta was a European capital of culture in 2018. Hey everyone, I'm Cullan. Thank you for listening to episode number 6 of my new book, Attempting Local. For now, episodes will be released every week, and I'll update you if that changes. This novel took over 2 years to create, from the idea's inception to editing this final version. The endeavor first required about 8 months of planning, applying, and test taking just to get accepted and then to prepare for university in Galway. I then worked through an arduous year-long accelerated master's program, all while traveling and experiencing the country just to keep an entertaining and detailed, handwritten journal to share with others. Lastly, I had to transcribe all 4 physical journals onto my laptop, edit, re-edit, send to my editor Sarah, and send to publishers, and I'm still currently sending submissions in. This process has taken an immense amount of time and money, and I'm still working on the Attempting Local project. All I ask is, if you're passionate about this podcast, desire the information it provides, or just look forward to the fun listening experience that it offers, please go ahead and support it. Simply head to anchor.fm/Cullan-McNamara or visit patreon.com/CullanMac. Your help and support will go a long way in keeping this podcast up and running. You'll fuel my ability to create and share this beautiful and timely piece of work with all of you. And hopefully, one day, this will finally get published in print. So thank you again, as always, and enjoy listening to Attempting Local, a year abroad in Galway, Ireland.